everyone, welcome back to Yulan's channel. Today we'll be continuing our journey in AP Psychology, and today we'll be talking about Unit 3.4 Visual Anatomy and focus specifically on the sight processes, visible light spectrum, parts of the eye, series of color vision, and we'll talk about the two series and common sensory conditions. So if you're interested, just keep watching. To understand light, you should be familiar with the electromagnetic spectrum. Humans see visible light. The spectrum varies in wavelengths from 400 nm to 700 nm. Purple to red. Wavelength is the distance between two peaks of a wave. Wavelength determines the hue, the dimension of color. Hue, I remember I made a mistake on this when I was doing one of the past year's exam when I was preparing for the AP Psych exam in May, and hue is not usually tested on exam, but it will come up sometime. You can't really say. And also you should also be familiar with the term intensity, which is the amount of energy in light. For example, if something is really bright, it has a high light intensity. If something is really loud, it has a high sound intensity. Intensity is determined by the amplitude of a wave, which is the wave's height. So, what are the other waves on the electromagnetic spectrum? Even though we cannot see these other waves such as X-rays, other animals could see them. Interestingly enough, bees can see waves from 300 to 650 nm, which means they can't see the color red, but they can see UV rays. You may also wonder why the word color is in quotes. Color is actually a mental construct. Objects don't actually have color. The way that waves reflect on the object creates what we perceive as color. Our brain gives the object color. Now we get down to the study of the five senses in depth, which will be coming up in our next video. So let's begin with the sight. So as this diagram shows, this is like a basic pathway that the object need to pass before we actually get into the visual cortex. So first, light passes through the cornea, a thin tissue that protects the eye and bends light to provide focus. Next, light passes through the pupil, which is a small opening controlled by the iris. The iris is a colored muscle that constricts and gets smaller, or dilates gets larger based on light intensity. The more light exposure, the more the pupil constricts. Behind the pupil is the lens. It focuses incoming light onto the retina as an upside-down image and changes the shape of light. This is called accommodation. The lens is curved and flexible so that it can focus on the light. You can feel your muscle changing focus with a classic finger-to-wall focus. Try folding up your finger and focusing on it. Then change your focus and look at the wall. Then change your focus back to the finger. Do you feel it? You should notice that your muscles are working hard to change focus. Once the image is received on retina, visual information begins to be processed, as this is where transduction occurs, which we mentioned in our last video. Transduction is a process of changing physical energy to neural impulses so that the brain can understand them. The retina contains millions of photoreceptor cells called rods and cones that begin this process by triggering chemical changes. We'll elaborate on the rods and cones later on, like in a few seconds, because this is a really key idea of AP psychology, especially in this unit. Those chemical changes begin a chain reaction which differs neural signals in nearby which in turn activate ganglion cells, the axons of which converge to form the optic nerve which transmits the message to the thalamus and finally to the visual cortex. This is where you actually see. So rods are black, white, and gray. There are about 120 billion of them in the peripheral of the retina. They are more light sensitive and therefore enable us to see in the dark. They are also necessary for peripheral vision. On the other hand, cones are our color receptors, unlike neurons. There are about 6 million of them, clustered in the center retina, which is the fovea, so the ratio of rods to cones are roughly 2:1. They function best in daylight and responsible for helping us to detect fine details. Note that remembering the difference between rods and cones is essential for this unit. You can easily remember cones as our color receptors because cones and color both start with the letter C. In the visual cortex, cells that respond to specific features of stimulus are formed. These are called feature detectors, which we'll discuss in more details as we continue, where the optic nerve leaves the eye in the blind spot as a result of the absence of receptor cells here. The optic nerve is also divided into two heart. The impulse from the left side goes to the left hemisphere, while the impulse from the right side for your both eye go to the right hemisphere. Where the nerve crosses each other is called the optic chiasm. If the room becomes suddenly dark, your eyes become gradually sensitive to the low light environment. Have you been able to sense moving things even in the dark? It might be due to your eyes' dark adaptation, which is a result of shifting from cone vision to rod vision.